Hello, hello. So we're back here again. It's been some time since I recorded because other stuff, but like we're still doing our thing. Like no big deal, right? So we were talking about correlates of crime, and so we'll kind of pick up that discussion a little bit. So last videos we talked about age, and so like where do we go? Like where do you guys want to go? I mean, like we're on this journey together. We can learn about anything, and the truth is, oh yeah, this is a video, so you guys can't decide. So we'll just pick one that we talked about. So big one that we'll do is one on biological sex. So for key reasons, right, just something to keep in mind is that, we know that gender is more of a social construct. And so there are people who are, male, female, cis, trans, they can be intersex people, and so on. So when we're talking about this, right, we're just going to focus on biological sex, right? Just biosex. And that distinction is really important because it focuses on past research, and a lot of like the established body of research looks at biosex because there wasn't really a nuance related to people with different gender identities, which is different from biological sex. And so there's really something for those of you that are interested in possibly doing a research project. There is a lack of research on criminality across gender identity. So if that was something that you were thinking about doing for like an undergraduate paper in grad school, like this is a great area to get involved with. A lot of room to explore. You could do a lot of fun different things like that. But just know that when we're talking about this, people often interchange the terms. It's not really correct because they are different things. But just know that we're talking about biological sex. So when we're thinking about correlates, right? Obviously, like as we said earlier, the core thing that we're talking about is what do we see as a pattern, and also once we have this pattern, why does the pattern exist? So when we think about biological sex, right, a few things are immediately of note, right, is that typically past studies dichotomize sex or gender is often how it's used into male and female studies, right? So they can look at and compare these differences. And so a big thing then is, men or males, I guess that would be a better word. Males typically have what? They have, one, they offend more. So across all crime types, across crime, so in general, they offend more. They also tend to be victimized more often. They also tend to receive harsher punishments relative to female people, or at least people who identify as such on past survey instruments or in data, right? So we know this, right, and that in general this is the case, right? And this is typically true for things like street crime. This is typically true for things like also like white collar crime, violent crime, and property crime. And so when we think about this, right, why is this the case? And there are, any number of reasons why that could be, any kind of change or difference into this, right? But we also know another thing, right? So we'll add this little addendum right here, is that female people tend to offend more for sex crimes. So things like prostitution. So we'll call it prost. Also tends to be a spike in offending for shoplifting. So again, big question then is, why is this the case? Because as with all patterns that exist, it doesn't have to be that way. And so something to keep in mind that as we keep on exploring more and more and more is, why on earth do men offend more than women? And how does a theory explain differences in offending? So how would they explain differences across men and women in terms of offending? So I think that kind of gets the general gist of it, right? Some of the facts and figures you've known before, but this is the kind of way that you should be thinking about issues related to sex differences and crime. And so we'll kind of keep that in mind, and we'll kind of pick this up in our next video.